I didn't even want to turn my phone on this morning to look at the results of the election. I didn't want to. I was having an excellent sleep. But, I knew sort of what the results would be in my gut, even before I turned the phone on. And as of now, it's pretty early in the morning here in southern Ontario, the day after the U.S. election. And I'm right on the border of the U.S. I can actually see the U.S. from the studio here. And there's a bridge that connects our two countries. And so far, I don't see the cars streaming across into Canada. But I think next year that might happen.
This is a show about jewelry, why we wear it, why it matters, how it's made, and what it means. I'm Alex D, and I turn cannabis into gold. I make mind-blowing jewelry in gold, silver, and platinum from cannabis plants here in Canada for stage, screen, for people who want to rock crazy jewelry. I'm the Cannabis Goldsmith.
As a Canadian, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, oh, fuck, this is bad. The Europeans are quaking already. I just touched out to the papers in Europe, and they're kind of the world is shuddering. Basically, it's like, oh God, what now? What now? We've dealt with with one Trump presidency, an epidemic. We've got two wars going on that might get linked into one giant world war. And then we have another Trump presidency coming. God. The Americans are quite fond of saying, we're going to move to Canada if Trump gets reelected. And on the other side, it would be if Harris got elected, that would mean that we would be getting the former Republican types coming up here to Canada to escape. I have a feeling that some Americans are going to move, and many have already made plans to move and have already got secured documents and everything to move to other countries. People like Eric Schmidt from Google, former Google dude, he's got Maltese citizenship. The rich. The tech bros are all all passported up. So no matter what happens to the USA, they'll just fuck off and move somewhere else. But it's the rest of the population that the impacts are going to be felt at. And in Canada, I have no idea what's going to happen. We have our own problems here. We have serious political problems here in Canada. We got a government that's just illegitimate and just stealing from the country and stealing from Canada and making these wanker deals in order to stay in power for no apparent reason. There's no plans, there's no nothing. They're just hanging in the breeze, basically. And now this huge win for Trump in the south of the border is going to change everything here in Canada, because the Americans, you beautiful Americans, are our brothers and sisters and our best trading partners and our friends, and we have family integrations and stuff. This is going to be really kind of strange, I think, for the next few years. But you'll hear all the analysis from the pundits, the ones that aren't going to be locked up or deported or shot. You'll hear how they'll be doing analysis as to why he did win and why Harris didn't perform better. And you'll hear all kinds of analysis, but you're not going to hear the analysis, my analysis. And my analysis is that there's no more generator of American pride and nationalism anymore. Hollywood is finished. Hollywood is gone. You know, like every single movie for a while when I was going to theaters back in the 80s, there would be American flags waving. There would be fighter jets flying overhead. There would be like, you know, the spy would be working for the Americans and win the day in the end, or it would be just plastered with American flags and military symbology. And this is art, you know, art being used as a political communications tool. In this case, to solidify the country, right? To solidify the country around the idea that the Americans have the strongest military, the flag, rockets in the sky, you know, defeating aliens, independent. Doesn't even matter if you come from some other planet and you have better tech. We're going to win because we're American, right? And Hollywood, a whole industry in California was built around movies and projecting these ideas into Americans about American pride and American patriotism, and you know, television shows and not only did it serve the purpose of inflating the I'm saying inflating, and I don't mean it in a bad way, but this is what it's doing. It's inflating the patriotism of the resident, the taxpayer, the citizen, getting them all like excited about being a citizen, and then they're exporting those movies around the world, so everyone else can see how strong America is and how united, and how if you're going to come in and invade the United States, basically you're fucked. You have no chance. And any war they get into, they win, according to Hollywood, and all this is drilled into the population. So, and then exported worldwide in video, film, audio, books, whatever. There's this whole industry of image shaping and image building and storytelling around a nation, around a country. That was Hollywood. Of course, Hollywood I put some other movies out, but if you look, they'll be flags, and they'll be in the background. You know, there'll be the house, and you know, the couple will be sitting on the steps, and the American flag will be waving in the back. It's patriotism exported. I'm not saying it's bad or good or whatever, but what it is it's artificial. It's fake. And then when suddenly there's no more Hollywood because of developments in technology, you know, that whole Hollywood system is gone now. The actors can't get work. They went on strike because AI is going to take over all their jobs. The AI is going to create fake Scarlett Johanssons whenever it wants, and that's the deal now. And they were striking to prevent that, and the strike got them nowhere. Basically, Hollywood is just you know, I have a theater, as I mentioned in the previous podcast. I had a theater that was, say, 20 kilometers away, whatever. I could, if I wanted to go see a movie, I could go see it. I'd hop in the car. But that's a long way to go for a movie. And the movies were generally worse and worse, and as Hollywood shrank and got more sad. And then they closed the movie theater. So now I have to drive like 100 kilometers to go to a movie. I'm not going to go to a movie in a movie theater. I'm not going to drive 100 kilometers on speculation to see anything, you know? So Hollywood has got an uphill battle to get reestablished now, but I don't think it ever will be reestablished. I think it's finished as a thing. And you can hear it in the lack of new content coming out of Hollywood that has any creative value. That whole channel is gone now for the American government to use as a state building tool to create story narrative around state building. Now, you don't have to believe me at all when you listen to this podcast. This is a show about art, design, creativity. But it's also about communication too. And communication is storytelling, is telling stories. See, in Canada, we have a problem is that we have a lack of patriotism. We do. As Canadians, we have a lack of patriotism. For a long time, I think Canadians, boomer age and younger, have this sense that patriotism is bad as a Canadian. We don't have the structures we don't have the Hollywood here to invent and polish and share our patriotism. The Canadian flags waving. Most of the great bands in the world that are Canadian, people think are American, but they're Canadian. And they had to move to the States to maybe cut records, but most of them, like 99% of them, admit to being Canadian and are proud of it. Like, we need to acknowledge ourselves as Canadian, and we need to be proud of being Canadian. I think it's much better. It's much better for it to come from within than from without. Like to have it painted on as a veneer, like Hollywood was doing with the United States. And here we don't have, we have the CBC, which is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and they're in enough trouble as it is right now too. But we don't have a sector that just promotes national identity and national pride and how great it is to be Canadian and beavers and moose and all that. We need that. We need that in Canada. We need something that can magnify our already the little small glow of patriotism and national pride that we have in our country, because we have such a beautiful country, right? And you can see what happens when that fractures I can see what happens when it fractures. And in the States, I think a large part of what the issue was with the rise of this new second Trump regime is due to the collapse of Hollywood. And there's people are not on the same page anymore when it comes to what a country means or what it feels like. And the art and the images and the storytelling produced about the country is what shapes that, right? And that's missing in the States now. So consequently, you have this happen, and God knows what'll happen, right? By the same token, what I'm saying here is that we, as a Canadian national, born in Canada, I mean, as someone who's Canadian, we need to strengthen our national identity as Canadian. Our problem is many of the people that have arrived recently as immigrants, they've been welcome to say you can be whoever you want in Canada. And so the people are battling with fucking flagpoles on the street in Brampton this week. They're beating each other, they're wounding each other, beating each other over the head with flagpoles from their former countries. Like, this is not what we want. What we want is participatory culture and civilization where we can all grow and benefit together. And that's what Canada must be about. None of this fighting shit. None of this, like, importing terrorists into our country. We don't want that shit. We don't want that. We have to look after ourselves. I mean, there's a big missing piece in our country, in Canada, is our heritage ministry. They've been focused on all the wrong things. They've been focused on controlling communications in Canada, because they want their own message to go out, their own propaganda. They want to build their own shade of the national identity, and they're trying to take over all of our media here, or they've done it pretty much. They're either buying it, paying the wages of the journalists now in the mainstream media, or they're funding the mainstream media, or it's being shut down because they can't compete, with state-funded media. We're trying to sell advertising as an independent media against, say, the CBC, who's also getting tax money, right? And they can undercut the ad prices of the independent media in Canada. So we've got issues here too, right? But we need a national identity revival in Canada. We need to polish up our national symbols. We need to shine them up because the world is becoming a much, much more dangerous place. And we have to be ready for that, I think. Now, where does the art come into all that? Well, the shaping these ideas of national identity and patriotism. I mean, we have a great start. We have great symbols here. We have a good flag. We have one of the best flags in the world, actually. It's instantly identifiable. It's not like one of those flags with 4 or 5 of the same colors. Like, there's 30 countries in the world that have the same colors, except the stripes are going different directions. Like, nobody can figure out what those mean, except for like third graders who prepare and study the different flags to give a presentation in class or something. Nobody can figure that shit out. But a Canadian flag is easy to see and recognize, and it's warm, welcoming. Even though it's red is like a really fucking hot color, and we're hot in Canada. We are, but that's not what you see with the Canadian flag. You see a warm, welcoming image. That's what I see when I look at a Canadian flag. We've got beavers. We've got rivers, we've got wilderness, we've got all these wonderful things that people think about when they think about Canada. We don't have to invent those images and stories. We don't have to start from zero. We have all that stuff, but we have to build on it. And not only do we have to project that outward, we have to project it inward to our own country. And this is what the heritage ministry in our country should be doing, instead of trying to control the speech of Canadians like they're doing for their own purposes. What they should be doing is projecting the beauty of Canada outside to outside of Canada, preserving our history and culture, and then also what they should be doing is preserving the image of Canada and growing and polishing the image of Canada to Canadians within Canada. Now, it's an uphill slug, this image building, using storytelling and national stories and images and stuff. But we have all this stuff, and we need to be doing it. I hope the next heritage minister we get the new government is going to look at everything differently, but I hope they take a more serious look at the heritage and the importance of culture and art, and how art can shape a national identity in a country. Like, we don't have Hollywood, even though we're called Hollywood North. And in fact, up here, what happens in Canada, like in Brockville, a few towns away here, there's a movie now, a Christmas movie that's running now. I don't know what it's called. I forgot now. But anyway, they filmed it in the summertime in Brockville. And what they did was they basically put fake snow everywhere. That's all this like cotton wool shit. And then hung American flags everywhere. And they turned it into the United States. Often Canada gets turned into the United States in movies. Many of these patriotic films you were seeing in the States that were like, so apple pie and so, oh God, but they were filmed in Canada, So we have a very similar looking place up here, but our flag is different and our people are different. And I think we need to start thinking about how we can use our art to build our national identity, I think. Now, there's dangers to this too. You can get into this. It can become propaganda, and it can become this. I'm sure what we're going to see in the United States now, after next year, we're going to see a lot of statues of Donald Trump being built, and we're going to see pictures of Donald in the stuff you see in Africa. When you go to these African countries in Central Africa. You see the president's picture in every store, in every, everywhere you go, there's a picture of the president. I don't know if it's required by law, but his smiling face is there. And if somebody from the military shows up and it's not there, you get shot, right? So this is the kind of vibe. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of statues of either state funded in the States of Donald, or people will be building them, just like big tall ones, just to catch his attention. Anyway, that's you guys. Oh man, I feel for you. Whichever side you voted for, I feel for you. And I've never been more happy to be Canadian, but we've got our own issues, and we should use our own art and our own way to think about art to strengthen our culture and strengthen our national identity as Canadians. That's what we need to do, especially now that the American chessboard has just been thrown up in the air, and all the pieces they're going to be landing every day in a different position. So we need to be very strong. We need to be very flexible, very versatile here in Canada. We need to build our culture and our national identity. We can do that through art events, cultural events, music. We can this is where the money needs to go now, I think. And because we've accepted so many more immigrants into Canada, we need to use our tools, our art tools and our culture tools, to unite everyone together on the same page for the betterment of Canada. Okay, now about art and jewelry. Well, some things are happening. I'm still studying. I am still reading books on color correction, on digital cinematography, Photoshop color correction, still trying to smarten the old brain to revive the older knowledge that I had when I was publishing a magazine, my color correction skills. I'm snapping them back. I'm studying. And I'm getting the shape of the documentary film. I'm going to produce a documentary film as I digitize the old photography from Tribe magazine. And I thought, I'm going to put a book out too eventually once I get some of the digitizations done. Enough of them for a book. But while doing the work, I thought, why don't I record a documentary and just talk about the process of the digitization and what the photos mean and so I've been trying to get the shape of that as a documentary. I know what it's called already. I'm going to call it Preserve the Beat. So I've got a good name. I've got a good URL, preservethebeat.com. We'll go to the movie site, the documentary site when it goes up. And it's just, I was thinking, how am I going to do it? Slideshows are pretty boring. If you weren't there, if you've never been to Arizona and somebody's come to you're at somebody's house and they're showing you all these slides of Arizona, then you don't know anyone in the pictures, or you've never been to Arizona. It's really fucking boring. It's totally boring. So a simple slideshow is like, no. I want to do a documentary film, and I want to describe the importance of the birth of electronic music in Canada and the early people that put it together. I have pictures of all this, right? The visiting DJs and all this stuff. And I want to talk about it as I digitize them and describe them. And maybe a little bit about me, but it's not about me. It's about the photos, and it's about the scene and about the culture. And it's about protecting that. And I think a little bit of the movie will be about how things get into museums and how is it that when you go to a museum and you see stuff there or a gallery, how did it get there? Like, what struggle went into getting it there in that glass case? And what stuff isn't there that should be there? So there'll be like little facets of the documentary like that, but it'll also be a documentary about the birth of electronic music in Canada and DJ culture and the birth of the magazine too. And it'll be heavily reliant on the magazine for data, for metadata, and for data about the time, the events, and all that kind of stuff that are shown in the slides. So that's the shape of it is coming together. I'm going to cut the images of the slides together, of the photography together with me talking, and there'll be other images too. I don't really want to do live video from other sources, but there'll be what they call B-roll, which is like, say, somebody walking to the office or me walking to the studio, like that kind of B-roll stuff, just to give some body, some shaping to the narrative of the documentary film. So this is, I'm going to record video as I go and store it, and then eventually I knit it together into a documentary film about the whole process of preserving and protecting this rare collection of photographs that describe a lost culture. Preserve the Beat. Coming, I don't know when. The whole project's going to take, the digitization's going to take 5 years, so I expect it'll be somewhere in that thing. If everything else works out, if the Americans don't start pouring over the border no. I can see the bridge. There's no cars coming across even now, but there will be. I think people are already talking. They've always talked about leaving the United States to come here, and we have our problems coming too. We've got election either this year or next year. We've got a new government coming in. The old one is getting swept out of power. Everything here is going to change too. So I don't know what to do. But art and national identity, there's a relationship there. And if the art piece is missing, the national identity can be unmoored and untethered. And I think that's what's happened in the States. And we in Canada, our symbols are really strong, and they're not war symbols either. They're like beavers and shit and leaves. So our symbols are very strong by their own right, visually and in the mind. So I think that's why we're still okay. But I think we should invest some money in protecting our culture, our history, and this all adds to our national identity as Canadians, or as a country, as Canada. Anyway, that's just my opinion. Hey, well, let me look at the phone again. Let's see. It's 5:45. Let's see if they've called it yet. Yep, they called it. Trump elected president. Clears 270. Okay, here we go. Now, I'm wondering, I guess people like Ezra Klein are at the Canadian consulate even now. Because, and Hillary, wasn't she threatened to be shot or something? I think we're going to be getting a lot of Americans. We have to be selective as a country. We just can't let all the Americans in. We must let the smartest Americans in, the best looking Americans, the ones that can add value to Canada. Yeah, good looking ones. That's all. And smart. Anyway, that Americans, I'm feeling for you. Okay, what's coming up next week? Oh, the craft fairs are all starting here in southern Ontario, southeastern Ontario, and all the small towns. Now that the election is out of the way in the States, you're probably going to be into the Christmas mode. There are the little craft stores and sales, and go and check them out and see what your local community art and crafts are about and what people are making locally in your community. I can't wait to see if there's anything new and exciting that's coming up in our area here. We have a new arts magazine, so maybe that's inspired some people to make new things here and different things. And I'm looking for that. There's every weekend now there's a different craft show or that's happening. So I'm gonna hopefully go to all of those and see what's up. Anyway, that's it for me this week. Should I wake and bake? The Cannabis Goldsmith is produced by Tribe Communications, Inc. in the Thousand Islands area of Ontario, Canada. You can see what we do at tribe.ca. Send us an email, alexd@cannabisgoldsmith.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week on the Cannabis Goldsmith.